No one bought her, abandoned, naked in an old West market, until a rancher saw her. The sun had climbed high over the small town of Redstone, casting a harsh golden light over the dusty streets. The Old West market was alive with noise and movement. Merchants shouted their wares, trying to sell everything from fresh vegetables to bolts of cloth, from chickens to pigs. Children ran between stalls, their laughter mixing with the clatter of wooden carts and the calls of people haggling over prices. Horses neighed in the distance, and the smell of hay, dust, and sweat filled the air. The market was always busy, and life moved fast, but something unusual that morning made the entire crowd pause, if only for a moment. Bah! Near the center of the market, on a worn wooden platform usually used for selling animals or other goods, sat a small girl. She was tiny, no more than 7 or 8 years old, and completely naked. Her skin was pale, marked with bruises and dirt, and her long hair hung in tangled strands around her face. She was trembling, not only from the cold of the morning wind, but also from fear. Her big eyes darted around the crowd, seeking someone, anyone, who might help her. But the people around her were too busy with their own business, too focused on their trade or their arguments over prices. Some of the townspeople slowed as they passed. They whispered to one another, pointing at the little girl. "Where did she come from?" asked one man, his voice rough with curiosity. "Why is she just sitting there?" Another woman shook her head, muttering, "Poor child, but I can't take her. We've our own troubles." The girl's small frame rocked slightly as she tried to cover herself with her arms, but she had nothing to hide behind. Her vulnerability was obvious, and yet, despite the murmurs, nobody approached. The market continued around her, the noise and the motion carrying on as if she did not exist. The girl's lips quivered, and a soft, almost inaudible whimper escaped her mouth. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten in a long time. She remembered being taken to this place by strangers, men who had treated her like she was nothing more than an object. She had been shoved onto this platform, left for people to decide her fate, and then abandoned. She didn't understand why she was left alone or why no one wanted her. Tears streamed down her dirty cheeks, but she tried to be brave, hoping someone kind might notice her and take her away from this frightening place. A few children passing by threw curious glances at her, whispering questions to each other. "Why is she just sitting there?" one asked. "She doesn't have any clothes." The little girl ducked her head, wishing she could disappear. She had learned quickly that in the world she had been forced into, vulnerability often led to pain. Her tiny heart beat fast, full of fear and longing, but she refused to cry too loudly. She knew that drawing attention could bring trouble, and she had already faced too much. As the morning passed, the sun climbed higher, and the market became even busier. Horses were led through the street, merchants continued to shout their prices, and townspeople haggled loudly over the smallest bargains. The girl's body shivered from the cold wind, her teeth chattering, but still no one stepped forward. Some glanced at her with discomfort, quickly turning away to avoid getting involved. Others pretended not to see her at all. She felt invisible, a small figure among the chaos, completely alone in the middle of the market. She tried to stand, her legs weak and trembling. Each movement was exhausting, but she wanted to find a safer place, away from the curious stares and whispers. Her feet were sore from standing on the rough wooden planks, and the edges dug into her skin. She stumbled slightly, her arms stretched out for balance, but she had no one to catch her. A few people noticed, but only as a brief distraction. "Careful, little one man said half-heartedly, then walked on, returning to his business as if nothing had happened. The girl sank back onto the platform, her tiny body curling in on itself as she tried to stay warm. Frowned, in despite. She thought of her parents, though she wasn't sure if she remembered them clearly. The last time she had been warm and safe, filled with laughter and food. Now, those memories felt like a dream from another life. She could hardly believe this was real, that she was truly alone, abandoned and naked in the middle of a bustling market. Despite her fear, she did not give up hope. She scanned the crowd with wide eyes, looking for any hint of kindness. She longed for someone to kneel down, to speak gently, to tell her she would be safe. Every so often, a shadow passed over her, someone walking by, but none of them stopped. Breast. She could feel the sweat mixing with the dirt on her skin, her lips chapped and dry. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and her muscles ached from hours of standing or crouching. Brash. Still, she waited, believing that someone, somewhere, must care enough to help her. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. The sun moved slowly across the sky, casting sharp shadows across the market. Merchants continued their shouting, the clatter of carts and horses, the squealing of pigs, all blending into one constant noise. Yet the girl remained on her platform, a tiny, fragile figure surrounded by the bustle of life she could no longer be part of. Her arms ached from trying to cover herself, her legs shook, and her small frame shivered with each gust of wind. But she was a mixture of fear, exhaustion, and hope, all at once. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a figure approached. A man with a weathered face, rough hands, and eyes that seemed to see more than the surface of things slowed as he reached the platform. He was John Miller, a rancher who had lived a hard life in the desert lands outside of town. He had seen much in his years: storms, cattle thefts, wild animals, but nothing prepared him for the sight of a little girl abandoned and naked in a busy market. His heart clenched, and he felt a deep, unshakable urge to help her. He knelt slowly beside her, careful not to startle her.
"Hey there,"
he said gently, his voice calm and steady. "It's all right. You're safe now." The girl flinched at first, but his warmth and calm manner slowly eased her fear. He reached out a hand, offering it to her. Trembling, she hesitated, but something in his eyes made her trust him. She took his hand, her fingers curling around his large, rough ones. He lifted her carefully from the platform, holding her close to shield her from the stares of the crowd. People in the market murmured. Some even gasped, but no one stopped him. They simply watched as the rancher walked with the little girl, holding her carefully as he made his way through the throng. For the first time that day, the girl felt a flicker of hope, a warmth she had not known for a long time. She felt protected in his strong arms, and for the first time since she had been abandoned, she believed that she might survive. As they left the market behind, moving toward the quieter streets leading to the ranch, the girl's small fingers clutched tightly around John's coat. Bright. She felt the tension in her tiny body slowly ease, replaced by a strange mixture of relief, fear, and curiosity. She did not know who this man was, why he had chosen to help her when others had not, but she knew she was no longer alone. For the first time in hours, maybe days, she allowed herself to believe that kindness still existed in the world. The market faded behind them, its noise and chaos replaced by the steady rhythm of life on the edge of town. And though the little girl was still small, frightened and naked in every sense of the word, she had taken the first step toward safety, toward warmth, and toward a new beginning that she could hardly imagine, but one that would change her life forever. John Miller carried the little girl carefully through the quieter streets of the town, feeling her tiny fingers gripping his coat with a mix of fear and trust. He could feel the tension in her body, the stiffness of someone who had been hurt and abandoned. Every step he took was measured, cautious, because he did not want to frighten her any further. Around them, the town moved on with its usual rhythm. People glanced at them as they passed, some whispering questions, but most ignored them. Yet none of the whispers mattered to John at that moment. All he could think about was keeping her safe. He led her to his horse-drawn wagon, which was parked outside the small ranch he called home. The wagon was sturdy, with a soft blanket draped over the seats. John helped the girl onto the seat, making sure she was comfortable. She hesitated, unsure of what to do. But when she felt the warmth of the blankets and the steady presence of John beside her, she slowly relaxed. He wrapped his coat around her once again, holding it tight so she would not feel the cold of the morning air. The journey to the ranch was slow. The girl's eyes scanned the scenery, wooden fences, open fields, and grazing cows, and she seemed to be drinking in a world that was calm and quiet, very different from the harsh market she had just left behind. As they traveled, John tried to speak gently to her, knowing that trust would not come quickly. "What's your name, little one?" he asked, his voice soft. The girl shook her head, her lips pressed together. She had been taught not to speak to strangers, and the last time she had tried, she had been punished. John did not push. He simply nodded and smiled. "That's all right," he said. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You're safe with me." Hearing those words, she felt a strange warmth in her chest. It was the first time anyone had told her that she was safe in days, maybe weeks. When they finally arrived at the ranch, John led her inside the small wooden house. The ranch was modest, with a few rooms, a kitchen, and a hearth where a fire always burned. The smell of bread, wood, and the faint scent of animals greeted them. Inside, the house was calm and quiet, a sharp contrast to the noisy market.
John set the girl down gently near the fire and knelt to meet her at eye level.
"Bert, this is your home for now," he said kindly. "You don't need to be afraid. We'll take care of you." The little girl's eyes widened as she looked around. But she had never seen such a place before. No crowds, no noise, no harsh words. Just warmth, light, and quiet. Mary, John's wife, entered the room carrying a basket of clean clothes. She paused when she saw the little girl, her eyes widening in shock. Breaths. "John, who is this?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. John explained what had happened, how he had found the girl abandoned in the market, naked and alone. Mary's heart ached as she looked at the small figure trembling near the fire. She had helped raise children before, but this little girl seemed more fragile than anyone she had ever met. Without hesitation, Mary knelt beside her. "It's all right, sweetheart," she said gently. "You're safe now. You don't need to be afraid." The girl hesitated, but the warmth in Mary's voice slowly reached her. Mary offered her a clean dress, soft and warm, and helped her put it on. The girl shivered at first, feeling the unfamiliar fabric against her skin. But gradually, she began to relax. She clutched a small worn doll she had managed to keep with her, holding it tightly as if it were the only piece of comfort she had left in the world. John and Mary did not ask questions yet. They understood that she had been through too much to explain everything immediately. Instead, they focused on the basics: warmth, food, and safety. For the first time in what felt like forever, the girl was given a plate of food. Her stomach had been empty for days, and as she ate slowly, the warmth of the bread and the richness of the soup made her feel alive again. John and Mary watched quietly, giving her space but remaining close enough to ensure she was safe. The girl looked at them with wide eyes, trying to understand why someone would help her when so many others had ignored her. Breath. She had grown up learning that most people did not care, that kindness was rare. And yet here they were, treating her like she mattered. As the day passed, the girl began to explore the small house under the careful watch of John and Mary. She touched the furniture, examined the kitchen, and peeked into the bedrooms, her curiosity growing stronger with each step. She had been confined to harsh spaces for so long that the freedom to move and explore felt almost magical. John showed her the small garden outside, where vegetables and flowers grew in neat rows. Mary pointed out the chickens and the cows, explaining how the ranch worked. The girl listened intently, her eyes lighting up with wonder. For the first time, she began to imagine a life that was safe, warm, and full of care. That evening, as the sun began to set over the horizon, John and Mary sat with the girl by the fire. They learned her name, Lily. She spoke softly, barely above a whisper, but it was enough to bring a smile to their faces. John and Mary shared stories about the ranch, about the animals, and about small moments of beauty in everyday life. Lily listened, fascinated, her fear slowly replaced by curiosity and hope. She realized that the world could be kind, that people could be gentle, and that she might have a place in it after all. The first night at the ranch was difficult. Lily woke several times, haunted by memories of abandonment and fear. She would curl up tightly, clutching her doll, and cry silently. Each time John or Mary would come and sit beside her, speaking softly, offering comfort without forcing her to do anything. Slowly, Lily began to understand that she did not need to hide from the world anymore. She could rest, she could eat, she could be herself, and she would not be punished for it. Over the next few days, the bond between Lily and the ranchers grew stronger. She began to help with small chores, like feeding the chickens or carrying water. Each small task gave her a sense of purpose and confidence. John taught her how to care for the animals, showing patience when she made mistakes. Mary taught her how to cook simple meals, how to sew, and how to care for herself. Lily listened and learned, her small face lighting up with pride when she accomplished something new. Saw. For the first time, she felt like she was part of something, part of a family that cared for her deeply. The ranch became a place of healing for Lily. The mornings were filled with the sounds of birds and animals, the afternoons with work and exploration, and the evenings with warmth and stories by the fire.
Slowly her laughter returned, quiet at first, then louder, filling the house with light and joy.
She began to sleep better, eat better, and even play with the other children in the nearby town. Each day was a step away from the fear and pain of her past and toward a future filled with hope and love. John and Mary never forced Lily to talk about her past, understanding that trust and safety had to come first. But one evening, as they sat together outside watching the sunset, Lily took Mary's hand and spoke softly about being left in the market. She described the noise, the crowd, and the way everyone had ignored her. She spoke of fear, hunger, and loneliness. John and Mary listened carefully, offering comfort and reassurance. They held her close, letting her know that she was not alone anymore, that she was safe, and that she would never be abandoned again. By the end of that first week, Lily was beginning to smile more openly. She ran through the fields, chased chickens, and helped with small chores. She had discovered the joy of freedom and the safety of home. John and Mary watched her with pride and love, knowing that she had endured so much and was now learning to trust again.
They had saved her from the streets and the cruelty of the market, but more importantly, they were helping her discover her own strength and resilience.
And so, the little girl who had once been abandoned, naked and alone in the heart of a busy market, began to learn what it meant to be loved. She was no longer invisible, no longer forgotten, no longer alone. The ranch had become a sanctuary, a place of warmth, care, and healing. And while the road ahead would not be easy, Lily had found a new beginning, guided by the kindness of two people who had chosen to see her not as a burden, but as a child worthy of love, safety, and hope. Life on the ranch began to settle into a gentle rhythm for Lily. Each day brought something new, sometimes a challenge, sometimes a small joy, but everything was framed by the kindness of John and Mary. For the first time in her life, Lily had a place where she felt safe. The morning sun would rise over the fields, casting golden light on the wooden fences and the grazing animals, and Lily would wake feeling a quiet excitement instead of fear. She had a bed to sleep in, warm clothes to wear, and a kitchen filled with food. Simple things that she had once taken for granted as a child now felt like treasures, each one a reminder that she was no longer alone. At first, Lily was still cautious. She often hesitated before approaching John or Mary, unsure if they might suddenly grow angry or leave her. She had been abandoned once, after all, and her little heart had learned to expect pain.
But the ranchers were patient, never forcing her to do anything before she was ready.
They let her take her time, letting her explore the house, the barn, and the fields at her own pace. Every corner of the ranch was filled with new sights, smells, and experiences. She could hear the soft clucking of the chickens, the lowing of the cows, and the occasional neigh of a horse. For the first time, the sounds of life felt safe and welcoming instead of threatening. Mary taught Lily how to care for the smaller animals, starting with feeding the chickens and gathering the eggs. At first, Lily's hands were clumsy. She would drop eggs or spill feed, but Mary never scolded her. Instead, she smiled and guided Lily patiently, showing her how to hold the eggs gently and pour the feed slowly. Lily watched carefully and repeated the steps, her small face lighting up each time she did something correctly. John often stood nearby, teaching her about the cows, the horses, and how to carry water safely. Each lesson was a mix of work and play, and slowly Lily began to understand the rhythm of life on the ranch. One afternoon, John decided it was time for Lily to see more of the open land surrounding the ranch. He took her by the hand and led her across the fields. The tall grass brushed against her arms, and the sunlight warmed her skin. She looked around in awe. The world seemed vast and full of possibilities, so different from the crowded, harsh market where she had been abandoned. Birds flew overhead, and the wind carried the fresh scent of the earth and animals. Lily felt a strange freedom, a sense of hope she had not known in a long time. As they walked, John told her stories of the land, of how he and Mary had built the ranch, and of the animals they cared for. He explained how each day required work and attention, but also offered moments of beauty. Billy listened, mesmerized by the calm and steady voice of the man who had rescued her. For the first time, she realized that life could be predictable in a comforting way, that she could trust someone to be there and not abandon her. Her small hand squeezed his. A silent thank you for his care and protection. Evenings were especially magical. Mary would light the hearth, and the soft glow of the fire filled the house with warmth. She taught Lily to sew simple patches on clothing, to cook basic meals, and to tend to small household chores.
At first, Lily struggled with even the simplest tasks, but Mary never criticized her. Instead, she encouraged her, offering praise when Lily succeeded.
With each new skill, Lily gained confidence. She began to believe in herself, understanding that she could learn, grow, and contribute. The powerless for so long, these small victories were life-changing. One day, Lily wandered into the barn while John was feeding the horses. The large animals were intimidating at first. Their size and strength made her nervous, and she froze when one of the horses nuzzled her shoulder. But John stayed close, speaking gently and guiding her hands to pat the horse correctly. Slowly, Lily relaxed, her fear replaced by curiosity. She discovered that she could interact with the animals without harm, that she could be gentle, yet confident. The horses became her friends, their quiet presence offering comfort and a sense of responsibility. She began to understand that caring for something else could also heal parts of herself that had been broken. Lily's mornings and afternoons were now filled with activity and learning, but she also discovered moments of quiet joy. She would sit by the garden, feeling the dirt between her fingers as she planted seeds, watched flowers bloom, or pulled weeds. She loved to watch the sun rise and set, noticing the colors change in the sky. These moments gave her a sense of peace that she had never known in her short life. She began to see beauty in small things, a butterfly landing on a flower, the gentle hum of bees, the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. Life felt alive in a way that she had never experienced before. Trust, however, did not come all at once. Lily sometimes woke in the middle of the night, terrified by dreams of abandonment and cold winds. She would clutch her doll tightly, trembling, and call out softly for John or Mary. Each time, one of them would come and sit with her, whispering comforting words, holding her until she calmed down. They never scolded her for her fear, nor did they push her to face it before she was ready. With each night, Lily's sleep became a little deeper, her anxiety a little less. Slowly, the walls she had built around herself began to crumble. Desk. Friendship and laughter began to return to Lily's life as well. She started to play small games with Mary in the yard, running and laughing in the sun. Her laughter, at first hesitant, grew stronger each day, filling the house with warmth. She even began to talk about her day, describing her chores, the animals, and the small discoveries she had made. John would smile and nod, listening carefully, offering gentle encouragement. Lily was learning that her voice mattered, that she could speak and be heard, and that her thoughts and feelings were important. As weeks turned into months, Lily grew stronger and more confident. She learned to ride a small pony under John's careful supervision, to milk cows with guidance, and to prepare simple meals with Mary. Each skill she acquired brought a new sense of accomplishment. She began to take pride in herself, in her abilities, and in the little contributions she could make to the ranch. For a child who had been abandoned and invisible, this newfound competence was empowering. Lily also began to connect with the land itself. She learned the rhythms of the seasons, the importance of caring for animals, and the patience required to grow crops. Bah! She marveled at how plants sprouted from tiny seeds, how animals responded to care and attention, and how the sun and rain shaped the world around her. Each day on the ranch became a lesson in responsibility, empathy, and observation. But she was learning not only practical skills, but also life lessons about patience, kindness, and resilience. John and Mary watched Lily's transformation with quiet pride. They saw the little girl who had once been trembling, shivering, and silent, slowly becoming someone who laughed, worked, and dreamed. Her small victories, whether feeding a horse correctly, planting a row of vegetables, or mastering a simple recipe, were celebrated with warmth and encouragement. They had saved her from the streets, yes, but more importantly, they were giving her the tools to grow, to heal, and to flourish. The ranch became a sanctuary for Lily, a place where she could be herself without fear of judgment or harm. She began to understand that kindness existed in the world, that people could care deeply, and that she could trust others again. Slowly, the pain and fear of her past were replaced by hope and confidence. She laughed more freely, played more openly, and embraced the life she was being given. Each day was a step toward healing, a step toward becoming the person she was always meant to be. And so the little girl who had once been abandoned, naked and trembling in a bustling market, began to discover joy, strength, and love. The ranch was no longer just a place to survive. It was a place to live, to learn, and to grow. Through patience, care, and gentle guidance, John and Mary helped her reclaim the childhood she had been denied. Slowly but surely, Lily began to understand that she could have a future filled with safety, happiness, and the warmth of a family who truly loved her. Lily had now been living at the ranch for several months, and each day brought new lessons, small victories, and a growing sense of belonging. She had learned to trust John and Mary completely, and their kindness had begun to fill the emptiness that had haunted her for so long. Every morning she would wake to the sound of roosters crowing, the sun spilling golden light across the wooden floor of her room. She no longer feared waking because she knew someone would always be nearby, watching over her, protecting her from harm. The warmth of a soft bed, a cozy blanket, and the gentle voices of her new family were now part of her daily life, and she began to feel a deep sense of comfort she had never known. The ranch had become more than just a place to live. It was a classroom, a playground, and a sanctuary all in one. Lily helped with chores every day, starting with the simplest tasks like feeding the chickens and collecting eggs. As she gained confidence, she moved on to larger animals, learning to feed the cows, brush the horses, and even lead them gently around the barnyard. John taught her patience and observation, showing her that animals could sense fear, impatience, and kindness. Lily learned to speak softly, move slowly, and be gentle, and she discovered that her small hands could make a big difference in caring for others. Mary focused on teaching Lily the skills she would need for daily life and independence. She showed her how to cook simple meals, wash clothes, and tend to the garden. At first, Lily struggled with even the simplest tasks, often spilling water or burning bread, but Mary never scolded her. Despair showing her how to correct mistakes and praising her successes. Slowly, Lily began to understand that mistakes were not failures. They were chances to learn and improve. Each success, no matter how small, filled her with pride and a sense of accomplishment. The days on the ranch were long but filled with structure. Lily began to wake earlier, excited to see what the day would bring.
She would help John with the morning chores, learning the importance of routine and consistency.
She noticed the patterns of life around her, the way the sun rose and set, how the animals behaved at certain times, and how the work on the ranch needed to be done carefully each day. These routines gave her a sense of stability she had never known. For the first time, her life had a predictable rhythm, and that predictability became a source of comfort. Despite the structure, there was room for play and creativity. Lily began to explore the fields around the ranch, climbing small hills, chasing butterflies, and watching the clouds drift across the sky. She found joy in simple things, the rustling of the leaves, the smell of fresh earth after rain, the soft brush of grass under her feet. These moments allowed her to reconnect with the world in a gentle and safe way. She laughed freely, a sound that had been absent for so long, and her laughter became a new kind of music in the ranch house, one that John and Mary cherished deeply. As Lily grew more comfortable, she began to share more of herself with John and Mary. She told them stories of the few memories she had from before her abandonment, the times she had been warm, loved, or safe, however brief they might have been. She spoke of the fear and loneliness that had followed her to the market, and of the strange mix of hope and terror she had felt when John first approached her. John and Mary listened carefully, never interrupting, always offering comfort and understanding. Their gentle presence allowed her to process the trauma she had experienced in a safe environment. John often took Lily on small trips around the ranch to teach her more about the land.
Hey!
He showed her how to identify different plants, how to care for the animals during harsh weather, and how to observe the signs of nature to predict changes. Lily learned quickly, her curiosity driving her to ask questions and try new tasks. Each lesson deepened her understanding of the world around her and strengthened her bond with John. She began to see him not just as a protector, but as a guide and mentor, someone who genuinely cared about her growth and well-being. Mary continued to nurture Lily's emotional growth. She encouraged Lily to express her feelings, teaching her that it was okay to be sad, angry, or scared, as long as she also acknowledged the good in life. Together they would sit by the fire in the evenings, talking quietly, sewing, or cooking. Mary often shared stories from her own childhood, showing Lily that life could be hard, but also full of beauty and love. These conversations helped Lily understand that her past did not define her future, and that she had the power to shape her own life through courage, care, and kindness. One afternoon, a sudden storm swept across the ranch desk, and rain poured down in sheets. Lily had never experienced such a powerful storm before, and the noise made her heart race. She clutched her doll tightly and ran to John and Mary, fear written across her small face. John scooped her up, holding her close as Mary comforted her with soft words. They stayed together, watching the storm from the safety of the porch. Slowly, Lily's fear began to fade as she realized that no matter how frightening the world might seem, she had people who would protect her. That day, she learned another important lesson. Safety and trust could coexist even when danger seemed near.
As the weeks passed, Lily began to take more initiative in caring for the ranch.
She learned to organize small chores, feed animals without prompting, and even notice when something was wrong. John and Mary watched in awe as the little girl they had rescued transformed before their eyes. She was no longer the fragile, frightened child they had first found. She was becoming strong, confident, and capable. And yet, she retained a softness and sensitivity that made her compassionate toward both animals and people alike. Lily's relationship with the animals grew deeper every day. She began to understand their moods and needs, noticing subtle changes in behavior that signaled hunger, sickness, or fear. She spoke to them softly, touched them gently, and learned to respond with patience. Her bond with the animals mirrored her growing bond with John and Mary, built on trust, understanding, and love. These connections reinforced her sense of belonging and gave her a profound sense of purpose. Schooling also became part of Lily's routine. Mary taught her to read and write, starting with simple letters and words. At first, Lily struggled, her hands awkward with pen and paper. But Mary encouraged her gently, celebrating every small victory. Gradually, Lily learned to read simple stories, write her own sentences, and express herself through words. Education opened a new world for her, allowing her to imagine possibilities she had never considered before. She realized that she could dream, plan, and achieve, and that her life did not have to be defined by the cruelty she had once faced. Through all of this, Lily's laughter, curiosity, and courage grew stronger. She no longer flinched at loud noises or sudden movements. She no longer hid when strangers appeared, and she began to show empathy toward others who were vulnerable or in need. The lessons she learned on the ranch, kindness, patience, responsibility, trust, shaped her into a thoughtful and capable young girl. John and Mary marveled at her resilience, recognizing that she had endured hardships no child should face and had emerged with a spirit that was unbroken. Evenings at the ranch became times of reflection and connection. Lily would sit by the fire talking quietly with Mary or listening to John's stories of the past. They shared memories, lessons, and hopes for the future. Desk, Lily began to open her heart fully, learning that love was not just something she could receive, but something she could give. She helped Mary with small acts of kindness around the house, cared for the animals diligently, and offered comfort to anyone in need. Breaths. Through these acts, she discovered the power of compassion and the satisfaction of knowing she could make a positive difference in the world around her. By the end of the year, Lily had transformed from a frightened, abandoned child into a confident, resilient, and compassionate young girl. The ranch had become more than just a safe place. It was home. She had discovered joy in small moments, learned responsibility and empathy, and built bonds that would last a lifetime. The trauma of her past had not disappeared, but she now had the strength, love, and support to face it and grow beyond it. Lily's story became a quiet inspiration to the ranchers and neighbors who saw her progress. They watched a little girl, once abandoned and invisible, transform into someone strong, caring, and full of life. And while she still had challenges ahead, she had already learned the most important lessons. That love can heal, that trust can be rebuilt, and that kindness can create a future filled with hope. Browned. And so, the little girl who had once trembled, shivered, and feared the world around her had begun to blossom. She laughed freely, learned eagerly, and gave love in return. The ranch had not only rescued her from the streets but had given her the tools to grow, to trust, and to dream. Lily had discovered that a child's heart, no matter how broken, could be healed by patience, care, and unwavering love. As the seasons changed, Lily grew taller, stronger, and more confident with each passing day. The little girl who had once been abandoned in a busy market had now become a vital part of the ranch and a symbol of hope for those around her. She woke each morning to the golden light spilling across the fields, the sounds of animals greeting the day, and the warm presence of John and Mary nearby. Life on the ranch had become a rhythm that brought her comfort, purpose, and joy. She had learned the value of hard work, the beauty of nature, and the strength that came from love and trust. Lily's mornings began with chores, feeding the animals, collecting eggs, and checking the fences. Her hands were no longer small and timid. They were strong and capable. She had learned to care for every living creature on the ranch, understanding that patience and gentleness could calm even the most frightened animal. John often watched her with pride, seeing how much she had grown since the day he first found her in the market. He had seen her fear, her fragility, and her hesitation, and now he saw confidence, courage, and a spark of joy in her eyes. But Mary continued to nurture Lily's emotional and intellectual growth. They spent hours reading together, learning about the world beyond the ranch and practicing writing, both respectably. And she began to write her own stories, often inspired by the animals and experiences on the ranch. She would sit by the fire in the evening, pen in hand, describing adventures she imagined or recounting the day's events. Writing became both a creative outlet and a way to process her past. Through her stories, she learned to express her feelings, hopes, and dreams, and to realize that her life could be more than just survival. It could be full of meaning and beauty. With her growing confidence, Lily began to explore more of the land surrounding the ranch. She would wander through the fields, climb small hills, and watch the sunsets paint the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Nature became her teacher and her friend. She learned to notice small signs in the environment, the rustle of grass that might indicate an animal nearby, the changing clouds that signaled rain, and the songs of birds that marked the passing hours. These observations gave her a sense of connection and belonging, reinforcing that she was part of a larger world that could be both beautiful and safe. Lily's laughter became a constant in the ranch house. It had once been quiet and rare, but now it rang through the halls freely, a reflection of her happiness and security. She played small games with Mary, helped John with animals, and even began teaching younger children from nearby homes about simple ranch tasks and caring for animals. Her empathy and patience made her a natural teacher, and she discovered the joy of helping others. She understood now that love and care could be shared, and that giving to others brought its own rewards. One day, a traveling merchant came to the ranch with news of the town. General spoke of a young girl who had been abandoned months ago in the market, and how people were still talking about her rescue. Desperate, Lily listened quietly, her heart swelling with a mix of emotions. She realized how far she had come, from a frightened, shivering child to someone strong, capable, and loved. The thought of her past no longer filled her with despair. Instead, it reminded her of the kindness of John and Mary and the resilience that had allowed her to survive. Lily also began to notice the ways in which she could give back to the community. She and Mary started helping other children in need, teaching them skills, offering care, and sharing the love and safety that had transformed Lily's life. She became a source of hope for children who, like her, had once felt invisible and alone. Her experiences had given her empathy, and she understood how a small act of kindness could change someone's life forever. Through these efforts, she discovered a sense of purpose beyond her own survival, a purpose that filled her with pride and meaning. Life on the ranch was not always easy. There were days when the chores felt endless, when animals became sick, or when storms threatened the fences and crops. But Lily faced these challenges with a new strength she had never known before. She learned problem-solving, resilience, and determination. She discovered that difficulties were not meant to break her, but to teach her, to prepare her for the life she was building. Each challenge she overcame reinforced her confidence and her belief in herself. As she grew older, Lily began to dream about her future. She imagined herself as someone who could make a difference in the world, using her experiences to help others. She wanted to create a life that honored the kindness she had received, a life where she could give back to those who were struggling. These dreams fueled her determination to learn, grow, and prepare for the years ahead. She began reading more advanced books, practicing writing longer stories, and learning new skills from John and Mary. Each day, she worked toward becoming the person she envisioned, a strong, compassionate, and capable young woman.
Lily's relationship with John and Mary deepened with each passing year.
They became her parents in every sense of the word, guiding her, supporting her, and celebrating her successes. She trusted them completely, knowing that they would never abandon her. Together, they shared laughter, stories, meals, and quiet moments of reflection by the fire. Lily began to understand the meaning of family, not just as people who provide shelter and food, but as people who love, guide, and protect you through all of life's challenges. The ranch itself became a symbol of stability and love. Each corner of the property held memories of growth, learning, and joy. The barn echoed with the soft sounds of animals cared for by gentle hands. The garden flourished under Lily's attention, each plant a reminder of her diligence and patience. Even the small house, once just a structure, had become a home filled with warmth, laughter, and love. It was a place where Lily could reflect on her journey, from the cold, frightening market to the vibrant, nurturing life she now led. As the years went by, Lily's story began to inspire others. Neighbors and townsfolk saw the transformation of the once frightened child into a young woman of strength and compassion. They realized that kindness and patience could change lives, that giving love to someone in need could create a ripple effect of hope. Lily herself never forgot the lesson she had learned, that even in the darkest moments, there is a possibility for love, safety, and growth. Eventually, Lily began to mentor other children who had been abandoned or mistreated. She shared her story carefully, emphasizing the importance of hope, courage, and the power of kindness. Children who had once felt invisible now found guidance and support in her presence. She taught them to care for animals, to nurture plants, and to trust in the goodness of people. Lily's own journey had come full circle, from someone who had been helpless and alone to someone who could offer care, safety, and encouragement to others. Looking back, Lily understood the depth of her transformation. She had survived abandonment, fear, and hunger, and she had grown into someone capable of joy, compassion, and resilience. Her past, once a source of pain, had become a foundation for empathy and strength. She knew that while the world could be harsh, it also held beauty, love, and opportunities to make a difference. And she was determined to live a life that honored both her experiences and the people who had saved her. By the time Lily reached her late teens, she had become a central figure on the ranch and in the community. She worked alongside John and Mary, cared for animals, taught younger children, and helped neighbors in need. Her laughter, courage, and kindness had become contagious, touching everyone around her. She had learned that true strength was not just physical, but emotional, the ability to face fear, trust again, and act with love.
The little girl who had once been naked and abandoned in a market had become a young woman full of light, hope, and purpose.
Lily's story was one of resilience, courage, and the transformative power of love. She had been given a second chance, and she embraced it fully. The ranchers who had taken her in became more than guardians. They became the family she had always longed for. And in return, Lily grew into someone who could share that love, hope, and safety with others. Her journey was a testament to the idea that no matter how dark a beginning might be, the future can be bright, filled with care, compassion, and endless possibilities. In the quiet moments, when the sun dipped low behind the hills and the animals settled for the night, Lily would sit on the porch with John and Mary, watching the sky turn shades of orange, pink, and purple. Bah! She would think about the market, about the fear and loneliness she had felt, and about the life she now had. She knew that she had been given a gift, a life filled with love, guidance, and hope, and she was determined to make the most of it. Her heart, once broken and fragile, had healed, and she now carried within her the strength to face the future with courage, compassion, and unwavering hope. And so, Lily's journey came full circle. The little girl, abandoned and unseen in the bustling market, had grown into a young woman capable of love, leadership, and inspiration. Her past, once a source of sorrow, had become the foundation of her strength. Her life on the ranch had taught her lessons that no school or book could offer. The importance of kindness, patience, and empathy, and the knowledge that even in the darkest moments hope can prevail. She was no longer defined by what had happened to her, but by who she had become. A shining example of resilience, courage, and the power of love to transform a life.